Aji May 30 days, State Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities, Nagaland or Prodigal Som Dimapur Bra, AIDA Campus Day, Disability Opor Ekta Consultative Workshop Rahishe. Yet State Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities, Nagaland Ditonio Nakro Bra, keynote presentation dia homoy koshe, Church Kan, Parabi Disability Tagamanu Kange, Matat Kurubule Barbo, Taiken immediate Church Kan Day arrangements kan Kurigina. Taigoshe Society Day, Disability Laha Opor misconception Bishase, Aro disabled Taga Magi Kanhi Bishe Tiktari Samna Korea Kushe.
Dialects and tribal dialects and languages is important. Just recently also in Kohima we had a workshop, a program together with the Nagaland State Disability Forum with some of the churches in Kohima, in and around Kohima. So it was a few of them came. We had a good discussion together. So it's about making the church inclusive. Inclusive church. How welcoming is your church is the question that we put forth to the churches. So accessibility, when we talk about accessibility, it's not only about the physical accessibility, the physical environment, but it's about communication, it's about the transportation, and so many other issues are there with regard to accessibility. So when we talk about, I will be touching on that also, when we talk about the physical environment, for a person like me on a wheelchair, it's very important for me to be able to get into a building, to be able to move around inside the rooms. If it is not accessible, then I cannot do anything, I cannot go anywhere. But for a blind person, maybe for a deaf person, or for a person with intellectual disability or some other disability, the physical, it is important, but still it is not the most major thing in their life again. They need accessibility in other ways, the communication, how can it be accessible for how do we communicate with the deaf community, or how do we make sure that the blind people are getting, the information that they should be getting. Those kind of accessibility aspects, we don't think about it also. So those are the things that I hope one of these days we will be able to have another meeting together with the churches. And it's not only about making the church inclusive, it is also about the services that the church is primed, in the right position to provide for many categories of disabilities. And that is one thing that I have been saying over and over again. We in Nagaland, because that's the truth, that there was a lot of neglect in the disability sector for a very, very long time. It is only in this past few years that we are making some progress, and we are happy about that. But we still have a very, very long way to go and a lot of work to be done. And the services, the rehabilitation services, the therapies, the various kinds of services that disabled people need to live their lives, to be able to function on an everyday basis. Many of them are still lacking in our society, in our state, because of the neglect. Nothing was started for so many years, in all through the years, nothing was started. So now a few private sectors are popping up, which is a very good thing. The government, it's still lacking in so many ways. Some are being started. Of course, we have the DDRC, where led by Dr. Im Lee, which is doing a lot of good work here around Dimapur. But that is only one center, and how much can it do? How will it serve the rest of the state? So we do have a huge lack of services, so the church is actually in a great position to be able to provide some of these services, volunteer services also. And but as I said, this is another topic, so I hope we get the time one of these days to have another good discussion about the things, many of these things which I feel the church can do. And which I hope they will also work with us, get more involved in the disability sector. If we want to do anything in the disability sector, then we have to first understand the disability issues and why something is so important, because without understanding that, we can talk about doing this, we can talk about doing that, we are going to start this project, or we are going to become, start a mission, a kind of ministry in the disability sector. But without really understanding what disability is, what the issues are, and what the needs are, and why such a thing is needed, then in the end, it becomes a useless exercise, or becomes a kind of a waste of time also in many cases. When you talk about disability, it is not really, it is not something to be scared about. It is not something to be ashamed about. We need inclusion. We want to be included in everything that is going on, Think about our needs, that is all we are saying, and then most of the needs that we are talking about is not even expensive, or it's not even as if you need 3-4 days, to plan it out. Once it is there in the planning process only, once you build your buildings, beginning the planning of your building, to include persons with disabilities, then you're not going to be spending any extra money afterwards, extra expenses also. Disabled people are actually a very diverse group, like non-disabled people. They are a diverse group of people with a wide range of needs. And this is something that people need to understand, because people will take the example of one disability, and the needs of one disability, and think that it serves everybody else. So, under the Disability Act 2016, the one that we are following now, is there are certain benefits, like the 4% reservation. There is 4% reservation in government jobs for persons with disabilities. So those kinds of benefits, these are, can be availed only by people with benchmark disabilities. So the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016 is now the overarching legal framework on disability rights in India. The first Disability Act actually was passed in 1995, and we have to be honest, I've already said, nothing much was done in our state for a long time, and this was largely because of poor awareness and understanding of disability and disability issues. So now, in 2016, this new act was enacted in the Parliament. It was passed in Parliament and came into force in April 2017. So this act, the RPWD Act, it promotes and protects the rights and dignity of people with disabilities in all aspects of life: educational, social, legal, economic, cultural, political, and political. So there are various chapters and provisions with regard to all these aspects of life, in order to make sure that people with disabilities, people who live with disabilities, are getting equal opportunities. They are being included in all the various aspects of life. So you will find various chapters on this. For example, in education, you will find that now the focus is on inclusive education, bringing both children with disabilities and non-disabled children together into one classroom, making sure that they learn together, grow together, and so that this fosters an inclusive mindset in children. So when they grow up, when they go out into the wider society, we can be sure that, the kind of feeling that most people have today, that will slowly disappear as we, we nurture our children in this inclusive mindset. So this inclusive education is a very, very important clause is a very important provision under the Disability Act, because it ensures that children with disabilities, people with disabilities, get access to quality education, and as well as in all the other aspects. It provides for full and effective participation and inclusion in society, And this applies not only to government, but it also applies to non-government and private organizations. That means to society as a whole. Right now, our focus has been largely with the government, because the government, as we said, has, it's not about the present government or one political party. It's about all governments. It's about all our political parties. It's about all our political leaders. For a long time, nobody has paid attention. Nothing was done by the government. So, in order to push things through, obviously the ultimate authority ultimately comes down to the government. So we are pushing the government, trying to make sure that things are moving in the right direction. But to be sure, this is not only for the government, but it's for the entire society, private organizations, businesses who are running shops and who have, any commercial activity going on. All these, the laws that are there, the provisions that are there under the Disability Act, it applies to the entire spectrum of, the society, not only the government. Many people, when they talk about disability, they think that it is just about, a few countable things. In fact, in the course of our work, talking to some communities, when we talk about disabilities, and the only thing that distinguishes a person with disability, it's not that they are different from any other person. They are like any other citizen. The only thing that distinguishes them is that they may need some adjustment or some adaptation in order to be able to do certain things in the same way that people without disability do. In every part of the world, disabled people, they have been stigmatized, they have been viewed as less, less of a citizen or less valuable than other people. Throughout the ages, throughout history, they have always been treated more or less like second-class citizens just because they look different, they talk differently, or because they, they may behave differently from what is perceived to be normal behavior. A non-disabled person, a woman may have to deal with that only now. A disabled woman has to deal with both the issues of gender and as well as the issues of disability. So they are, they have double, multiple disadvantages because of this, and they are also much more vulnerable to various forms of violence and deprivation in many ways.